Thank you for having a look at this brief presentation of some ideas for how we can have interactions with knowledge objects to be shown in a few weeks. So this is not one of those let's change everything moments. So we talk about a knowledge volume, and in this case we're talking about it in the shape of a cube like this. But as you can see, one of the sides or frames is highlighted because these are active. So for example, what we're talking about now is showing our future of text book, or hopefully books, inside a volume. So please understand that this is obviously not a visual representation of what it should look like. It's a diagrammatic representation of the kind of layout options we should have. So on the right, that wall or frame is using the Z-axis to move items in time. So the future of text 1 is furthest away, future of text 6 is closest to us. So that's an automatic layout where they are in kind of sheets. At the back of this, the back frame, there are some topics that the editors that we have chosen to see what is useful for people to orient themselves in the books. The point of this whole exercise is to help people find what is relevant for them to read. So it's to sort through hundreds of articles. The layout at the back, for instance, top left it says XR, that means that any articles that deals with XR will be closer to that one. So you can see just a few here. Now, interacting with this, we have to allow the user to do several things like interact with the whole unit. So maybe if they pinch on a corner, they can scale, maybe rotate around the central axis by the sides, and then maybe we have a button, so to speak, at the bottom to allow them to click for options. The notion here is that there will be no visible interface elements until the user does something like clench their fist, and then it appears, and then the user can use their other hand to interact with these, or some other gesture. The whole point of this discussion is for us to figure out gestures and interactions together. There could be a save and retrieve configuration at the front, which is really, really important because this should not only be about reading. The user should be able to take any of these articles and pull them into space outside of the cube, where the original then gets very grayed out, so it has a reference point. The user should also be able to pinch in space, write notes, write their thoughts, and once they save that as a configuration, this quite literally becomes a new authored spatial volume. One approach to dealing with the timeline, which here is in the Z dimension, is to have a bar underneath this frame that the user can scroll along or use two hands to pinch to make it show more or less, so you kind of zoom in and out of time. Something to be experimented with maybe. So the desired interactions are pretty obvious. I'm sure there's more, but for the whole cube, the user should be able to scale it, rotate it, and move it where they want to. Conceptually, you can have more than one cube in a space. For our purposes now, there's only one. And you should be able to change the frames, what frame is where. So you should be able to really easily move timeline to over there or move this here and so on. And of course, edit how the frames behave. Globally, you should be able to add and remove categories of things, like all the articles from a certain book should be there or not, and how icons should appear and so on. So here's a different version of what I looked at earlier, where when you call for it, such as taking the soft space idea of making a fist and then everything changes so you can move the whole thing, or here's another way of looking at it where there's only two frames. I really want to emphasize that the cube is to help us as a scaffold. Now, it shouldn't always be visible as a cube, and most certainly once we get more sophisticated with this, you should have as many or as few sides as you want. So here's just one visible frame, and it's kind of interesting because the timeline is there, it's just not shown. So then I got the idea of, based on the question of where should be able to have the controls for all of this, you could have a mini cube that appears on your wrist. Maybe you turn your not primary hand to look in your palm, which is close to what some of the operating systems are. But let's say look at your palm and a cube appears. And this, of course, is very Andrea based, I've realized. So you have this mini cube in your hand. So if you now rotate that or scale that, that scales the whole thing. When you're done, you move it away. You should also maybe with this mini cube be able to pinch out one side and move it to another side. So it would take care of that. And also maybe you should be able to do other gestures in or around this to affect how you use it. The only thing you wouldn't be doing is interacting with the specific nodes or articles. That's something you would do in the main cube, so that would be the key difference. Maybe if you are looking at a specific side to decide if it's going to show the topics, kind of like the map, or all the authors or the references, or the timeline, or a geographic map, or whatever it is, this could be a way where you can alter how it behaves. So that was it. Just to go back to the main image here, we're looking at making a cube that has different sides that can influence layout. For instance, the topic makes things go towards the different topics, as in magnetically. We can have timeline. We could also imagine here on the ground having a geographic map. So the way you look at it, the way you move around it, maybe things could appear differently. And it needs to be really, really simple for the user to change this view, to really sell the idea of working in XR, because that is what we're doing here. We're not just doing a passive demo. We're trying to sell the notion that, yes, working in XR can be powerful. So we got to demonstrate that with powerful interactions at this stage. So that was a lot of talk. Very grateful for you having a look, and let's see what we can figure out together on Monday.